Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am Michelle Morris from Consolidated Planning Group, and we love bringing you these helpful webinars. We do these several times a week, and we are so excited to bring you Lynsy Meier today, who is going to help us understand some of these waivers. Before we let Lynsy get going, I just want to let everybody know that today's webinar is being recorded. We will send it to whatever email address you registered with. So I hope you didn't use a fake one. We're going to send a link to the recording and all of the slides. So you'll have this information later on today. And we also put everything on our YouTube channel in case you have to step away. You can watch it there. We have a podcast. If you're listening on the podcast and you would like a copy of our slides, you can just email us. That address is contact@cpgcares.net. We'd be happy to send you those slides. So like I said, we cannot hear you or see you because we're in webinar mode. So feel free to grab a drink and a snack. We should go for about an hour today. And if you have questions or comments, we certainly welcome those. The easiest way for you to do that is to put it in the chat box, okay? So questions and comments go in the chat box. A little bit about Consolidated Planning Group before we get started. We are a financial planning firm that focuses on families who have special needs loved ones. Lynsy, if you'll go to the next slide for me. We have families all over Texas that we serve and all over the United States. We're based outside of Houston, but with the magic of the internet, we are able to serve families all over the place. And we help with things like protection plans, lifetime care, transition planning, ABLE accounts, and advocacy. The owner of our company has 2 kids with special needs, and that's why we do what we do. It's confusing, and we know that. And there are a lot of nuances that you need to know to make sure that you don't jeopardize your child's benefits. So we understand all of that. We are one of fewer than 200 special needs financial planners in the United States. And we are very proud to be able to serve you and educate you and advocate for you. So we do holistic planning, full comprehensive financial planning with investments and life insurance and special needs benefits and all of that wrapped all into one. So let me get rid of this spam. And spam during a webinar, that's a new one for me. But anyway, Lynsy, you're up. Take it away. I don't want to take any more of your time because we're here to listen to you.
Oh, thank you, Michelle. As Michelle said, I'm Lynsy Meier. I work for an HCS provider company called DNS Community Services. We were bought out a couple years ago by Sevita Health. So we've gotten to keep our name, DNS Community Services, for our contracts here in Texas, but our parent company is Sevita Health. So if you've ever heard of us and you hear DNS or you hear Sevita and wonder how that goes together, that's exactly what it is. We're both now at this point. We do serve the HCS program. We have served other programs in the past, but now we focus solely on that. But I will, as Michelle had said, share just a little bit about some other waivers that are out there for you that if you've never heard of them, you can get with your local authority. The previously called MHMR office, LIDA is another word for them in your area. So what we're going to talk about today is the list of Medicaid waivers. Why do you need to know about waivers? Who qualifies? We're going to talk in depth about the HCS actual waiver. And then we're going to talk about how you could potentially help someone in your family by hosting them in your home, or even helping somebody who is, somebody who's just in need of a home and being able to not have to live in a group setting. We'll talk just for a second about that as well. So the programs here in Texas is the one that I keep mentioning, the Home and Community-Based Services, the HCS program. There's also a program called CLASS, Community Living Assistance and Support Services, that serves individuals. And I believe you start in a CLASS program before you turn age 22. So that's for your younger group of folks. And then you can continue as you age with that same program. We also serve the deaf, blind, and multiple disabilities here in Texas through your local authority. We have the Texas Home Living Program, which serves the community similarly to HCS, but there's a few less services, and the limit on the services maxes out just a little bit lower than what the HCS program provides. So that's another one. If you have a loved one in your home or know somebody, you can check on the Texas Home Living Program. And then there's the YES program, the Youth Empowerment Services, and that's for children starting at already the age of 3 through 18 years old that need some extra assistance. So there are programs out there for all ages of children. And the most important piece of it is to recognize as soon as your child has a diagnosis of special needs diagnosis, recognize that there are programs out there that you would want to go ahead and get started learning about as early as possible, because many of them have a waiting list. So who can receive waiver services? You hear that it's a Medicaid waiver, and over my years of experience in this program, people say, well, we don't qualify for Medicaid, so there's no point checking into that. And that is not the case in this particular setting. The disabled person qualifies for Medicaid on their own merit. It doesn't have to do with the income in your home. So if you're a Texas resident and you have an IQ of 69 or below, or in some cases, like Asperger's is a good example, if you have an IQ of 75 or below, you probably qualify for one of these services. So of course, that's mild to severe deficits in behavior, eligible for Medicaid on your own person, and not enrolled in another program. So we talked about 5 waivers that are out there in Texas. Whenever you're deciding which program to be in, like say you're in one of the programs for youth, and then you get an HCS slot offered to you, you have to choose, is the CLASS program the program that I think fits our family best, or would HCS fit our family a little bit better? And you choose along with a team of people who can explain that in detail to you on what the benefits are in each program, and you make the choice, because you can only be enrolled in one waiver program at a time. So why do you need to know about these waivers? The most disappointing piece of working in this field for 15 plus years is I never even knew it existed. Okay, unless you have a child born with a special need diagnosis, a lot of people and families and teachers even, that people need services, but you don't really know of them. You don't hear about them. There's no great way of spreading the word throughout the state. And it's a disservice to families with special needs loved ones that we really need to find a better systematic approach, but there unfortunately just isn't one. So it's a word of mouth approach. Many school districts are getting better about sharing some services whenever you enroll in school in pre-K or kindergarten level. But some schools, because I will also do these presentations at school districts sometimes, and you'd be surprised how many schools and families and teachers just have never even heard that there's anything out there for them. So I personally wish that at every pediatric doctor's office or some sort of way that if they add a special needs diagnosis to your child or anybody's child, they would pass out some sort of paperwork that says, hey, this is what you need to check into. Many families think that they just won't qualify. So like I said before, a lot of people kind of dismiss the idea of services through the local authority, the LIDA, because they're like, well, we don't qualify for Medicaid. And in a lot of other cases, that would be the case. It would be, oh, well, there's no point going through that process, asking questions, filling out all that paperwork for no reason. And that is not not the case in this situation. So please don't let that deter you. And this is the most devastating fact that I will share on this entire call today with you, is that there are over 170,000 people on the HCS waiting list. And unfortunately, that number is probably growing. And the waiting list is up to 20 years. So when you are planning for your child in elementary level, at kindergarten level, not always are you thinking, well, what will my child do whenever they're grown up? Like, will they live with me forever? Will they be able to live on their own? Will they be able to get a driver's license? Will they go to college? That's where Michelle and her team help plan for some of those things. But many times families aren't looking and thinking that far into the future. You're just thinking about education at that point and resources that you need for, your child. But the biggest thing we want to do is spread awareness that you do have to plan out many years in advance in order to get these services. And I'll share with you in just a minute what the services are and why they're so important whenever your child becomes an adult, especially.
Hey, Lynsy, I have a quick question. What are we doing? What is HCS or, anyone doing to help bring down this weight? Is there anything in process that is going to make this better in the future?
I'm just honestly not sure of the answer to that. As a provider, we are one of the larger providers in Texas. And if I have sent out messages to like school districts and different contact groups in my area where I've asked to do different presentations, like Austin ISD, I've done a presentation, Belleville ISD, I've done a presentation. We've gone to different school districts. So we have locations throughout Texas where the director in that area will contact, resources and things like that to try to spread the word. But I don't really know.
Okay.
I would think the LIDAs probably try to spread the word a little bit. Like I said, there's just not that I've ever heard of any great planning process. But hopefully there is something in the works. And if I ever hear of it, I will share. Absolutely.
Yes. Thank you. I did see that we had someone raise their hand. So I just want to remind you, if you could please put your question in the chat box. And yes, this is being recorded and will be sent to you. Okay. It says state legislature needs to fund those slots. Yes, they do.
Yes, they absolutely do. And that's a great thing to bring up. It's something that we share with families all the time. So I'll just go ahead and mention that as well. Many of us are not at the point where we, are in contact on a regular basis with our legislature. However, if you would take the few minutes that it takes to figure out who that is for your area, or if you already know who that is, just sending an email to them to say, the HCS program or any of these 5 programs, Medicaid waivers are very important to me. This is why. The more we let the legislature know as Texans that this is important to us, the more likely they are to increase funds. At this last legislative session that they had this year, they did offer some increase to a couple of the rates for the program, but unfortunately it wasn't enough of a increase that will really make a big difference across the board, especially when it comes to offering the staff who work in the programs and the host home providers who provide services in the programs to have a competitive wage. So please, if you have an opportunity to do that, go ahead and message your legislature and just tell them that the Texas Medicaid waiver programs are very important to you and they should, take a closer look. And if you want to know some more information on who qualifies for HCS, if you're just not sure if this applies to you, but you're listening anyway, this is a web address that will get you to the Texas Health and Human Services website. There's also the QR code, and it'll bring you to the HCS portion directly, or you can even search in your Google Texas Health and Human Services HCS, and that'll bring up information as well. So what is the HCS program? This one is the Texas Medicaid waiver that is probably the most sought after because it provides the most extensive services. And we're going to go into those. So HCS, as compared to all of the other waivers, offers living options. And you're like, oh, well, you know, my loved one already has somewhere to live, but not everybody does. Okay, some families are able to provide that for a lifetime. Some families aren't able to provide it even as a child, and some of our special needs individuals end up living in nursing homes even as children, because they have higher medical needs or something and the family just can't support them. Sometimes they live in state centers or psychiatric placements because maybe their behavior needs are just too high to have them living in the home with other children that they may, you know, unfortunately, you know, be in harm to. So there are opportunities to give anybody who has an HCS slot an option for how they want to live their life and where they want to live. So a group home is a popular option for a lot of people, especially if they don't have that family support. Group homes can be 3 or 4 bedrooms. You always have your own bedroom in a group home. You always have staff supervision. So that's the biggest piece of living in a group home, is they're all throughout the state. There are a ton of providers to choose from. Your service coordinator through your LIDA would help you go through that list of providers and choose which provider you want to look at, as close as maybe to your home if you want to still visit. And some important things to know about a group home is you have your 24-hour, 7-day-a-week staff supervision. So the staff usually rotates in and out of the home on a schedule, but you always have that assistance. They will provide the transportation to and from doctor appointments. They will provide outing, transportation, work, school, whatever it may be. They cook healthy meals in the home. They help with all of the daily living skills. Maybe you need a little help brushing teeth or whatever it may be. They will help with shopping for groceries, supplies, all of the things that you do as a mom or a dad. The staff will do for the folks who live in a group home. And most of the time group homes are for adults, but we do have some children living in group homes as well. Supported home living is another really great opportunity. In this particular case, you would live at home, or the individual served lives at home with family, or if they're able, they can live in an apartment on their own or with a friend, or some of our folks are married and they live with a spouse. And in this particular living option, the program provides assistance where somebody would come in and provide those hands-on needs to you, maybe helping set up your medication to make sure it's in like a med minder or med reminder packet, so that you take the right meds in the morning and the evening. Maybe it's meal prep, maybe it's laundry, maybe it's getting you to the grocery store or the pharmacy to pick up your medication, pick up your groceries, all of those things. If you want to go, you know, to the movies, or you want to do whatever it may be, these staff assistants would come in, help you set up a schedule of how you want your day to go, and they can help get you through your day as much or as little assistance as you need. So that's a really cool one. And
while we're talking about different living options, I had a question recently come up. Are you able to use the HCS waiver to pay for a residential community, like something more like Brookwood or Marbridge?
So Brookwood, oh goodness, I don't want to say the wrong thing. So let me just say in general, if the residential living environment accepts HCS, then yes. But many of the living communities such as that are not HCS, they're private pay. So that's just going to be based on whether or not they are set up to accept HCS. So HCS is governed by Health and Human Services. And of course, to be an HCS provider, there is supervision of the services. So there's a certain way you have to have a home set up, certain provisions you have to have, like for instance, you have to have solid core doors, you know, for fires and fire drills and a lot of different things. So if any private care community is willing to contract with Health and Human Services and follow those guidelines, I believe that HCS would be an option, but that would just be on a case-by-case basis of whether or not they offer that service.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And then the other service that HCS has is host home. So host home is where here in Texas, you can continue to live with your parents as long as you're 18 or over, and your parent can be a host home provider. So that would mean the parent contracts with our company or another HCS provider and continues to care for you. But at this point, you're an adult in their home because you're 18, and the service is paid to the parent, and it's federally tax exempt, and you get a daily rate for helping your loved one remain in your home as an adult. Now, you don't have to have it be a parent in host home. Host home providers can be any family member, or it could be any non-family member that maybe you know or you're comfortable with and they want to serve you. Of course, there's some rules and regulations behind, background checks need to be done, and the host home provider agreeing to the contracted requirements and paperwork that has to be filled out on a regular basis. But anybody can be your host home provider. In my role with our company for the last year and a half, I searched Texas for host home providers that are non-family members, just people who are interested in helping a special needs individual live in a home setting when it's not available to them through a family member. So we just look for host homes throughout the state to offer that to people, and it can be an incredibly rewarding experience on both sides, for the individual getting that home life and for the host home provider for doing such a nice thing to improve somebody's life. So once you get your HCS slot and you choose what your living option is, you also have a wide variety of other services that are really nice to have. I will also share, because I didn't say it on the last slide, that these services, any service you choose, is fluid. So say you decide you want to try a group home, and then you say, okay, well, I don't think a group home was for me. I'm going to go ahead and move to host home. And, a couple months later, you're like, okay, well, now I've rolled out group home, I've rolled out host home. I think that my loved one really would do fine living on their own. And we set up this other service where attendants come in and help them with things. You can make all three of those changes within the same year. Nothing says that you are locked in or forced to stay in one service for any amount of time. So it is completely fluid. If you're there for just a couple days and it's not for you, there is no requirement, like even that 30 days, like sometimes in a nursing home, they'll say, we'll discharge on the 1st of the next month or something. This program is not like that. You can change services at any time that the service either doesn't fit your needs anymore, or you need additional needs. You need additional services added to your plan. So we'll talk about what all those services can be. So you can start your year and say, the only thing I need is maybe group home, nursing, adaptive aids, and you can end your year with a wide variety of all these services on your plan, and then you can change it up however you want. So I think that's really important to share, and I probably said it too many times, but every time a little bit different way, that your plan is fluid. But when you receive your HCS slot, no matter what service that you receive, you're going to receive case management. And case management just means that the provider that you choose is going to help you throughout your year. They're going to update that plan that I just shared with whatever your needs are. They're going to participate in planning meetings with the service coordinator from the LIDA to make sure that you're happy and healthy and you have what you need throughout the year. They're going to monitor how the services are being utilized and increase them if you need more, or decrease them if you need less, add, subtract, all those things. They're going to, if you're in the school, a lot of times they'll participate in the ARD meeting to make sure that the plan we're doing on our side matches the plan that the school is doing on their side, because a lot of these programs kind of go hand in hand with what the school does in their ARD versus what you can put on the IPC. So case management can be really important. They'll help you fill out Medicaid applications. They'll help you just kind of navigate through the year. And then every year you have a new annual planning meeting where you're starting a new year and you make the decisions that you want to make for that year.
So you don't get like case management until they get the slot, right?
Right. Yeah.
And
so these are all services that you get when you get the slot. So your LIDA, the MHMR will call you and offer you the slot. And this is also something, to add to this. If you get a packet in the mail and you don't know what that is, and you're like, oh, we probably don't need that, I'm going to bounce around just a little bit here, and I'm going to say, this is what I tell people all the time. If you don't need anything else, take the slot for the dental. There's $2,000 worth of dental cash money available through this program as long as your child is 22 or older, because otherwise dental is paid for through Medicaid. But you want to take the slot so that you can put the dental on as an adult. So many people say, we don't need that, we're fine how we are, but don't pass up that $2,000 of dental money, because you can use it as the copay after your private insurance pays. Like, just take it for the dental, and you might need it in the future. You just never know. But once you pass over the slot, you go back on a waiting list if you would want it again. So, just take it, put minimal services on there, review it annually, and just have it just in case that, something changes in the future. So I was going to share about nursing. Nursing is another service that we provide, all HCS providers provide. It's registered nurses look after the medical needs of the individuals that we serve. So the nurse will do an initial RNA, initial registered nurse assessment, and look over the paperwork that the primary care doctor has. And then they'll look into any other doctor appointments that you have coming up. Say you see, 2 or 3 different specialists. The nurse's job is to help remind you when those appointments are due. They review the documentation. They might help train on a new word that you've never heard of before, a new diagnosis, or maybe a new diabetic regimen that you need a little bit of help understanding. They come out and visit, usually quarterly. If you're in the group home, they will set up all of the meds. They'll do all of the appointments. They will just help by leaps and bounds, make sure that you understand the medical needs of the person you love, and make sure that those things are taken care of as best they can. Individualized skills and socialization is called ISS. If you're familiar with HCS, you've heard the words dehabilitation or DAHAB in the past. This program, the ISS program, took over for the DAHAB program as of March 1st of this year. And it's very similar. You still have your day service center you can go to, but now the day center has a little bit more oversight from Health and Human Services. So they're required to have everyone CPR trained, for example. And the HCS Health and Human Services actually comes out and visits the day center each year and makes sure it stays up to date on the regulations that they have in place. So we went from DAHAB to ISS, and the main difference is that it's just regulated just a little bit more closely, which is a good thing, because it makes sure that the ISS centers are taking care of people when they're there the way they should each and every day. For ISS, there's a piece of it for in the facility. There's also offsite ISS. So a lot of people are getting to do more outings and activities in the community now that they've changed to ISS, because they've changed up the billing and the staffing ratios to make it a little bit more accessible to be in the community more, which is what the goal is. And then a question that I still get quite a bit is, well, what if my loved one can't go to a day center? Can I do ISS at home? And ISS is does have a few exceptions where you can do the service at home if, say, your loved one is retired, 65 or over and retired, or maybe has a pretty significant medical diagnosis where it's not safe for them to go into a day center. Maybe they are immunocompromised. So those are things that you could talk about with your service coordinator and provider to find out if your loved one qualifies for in-home ISS. But getting out and socializing and being part of a group is the main goal of the program. Behavior support is another big deal. Behavior support is where a board certified behavior analyst, a BCBA, reviews records of past history of maybe some behavior challenges, does interviews to the family, the staff members, and they do some in-person assessments, and I can't think of the word I'm trying to say, but oh my gosh, I don't know why I'm stuck, but they come out and they do evaluations, and then they write a behavior plan that will help staff members or family members handle that specific behavior. So say, I need a behavior plan because I'm just kind of ugly with my words to my mom, and mom just doesn't know how to handle that because I haven't always been that way. So the BCBA will come in and do all these interviews, and they'll write a plan, and they'll train mom on the plan and explain, like, well, if this happens, this is how you can handle that situation. And then they track and make sure that it's working and make adjustments as needed and train and help. So it can be a really valuable service. Dental treatment, I already kind of shared about. $2,000 a year can go a really, really long way. Maybe not if you need, really a whole lot of major medical, but it at least covers all of your cleanings, exams, and x-rays for the year. If you need cavity filled, things like that. If you start getting into, dentures and root canals and stuff, then $2,000 doesn't stretch as far. But keep in mind, that's $2,000 more than you had to start with without the program, which is why I say just always take the dental. Because even if you only use it for your one cleaning exam a year or twice a year, whatever it may be, it's totally worth it. And you just never know when something might pop up, and you need to have those funds available. And like I said, it's cash money. We pay the dentist. You don't have to go to a dentist that takes Medicaid or anything like that. It's a waiver. So we are going to pay them with a check or a credit card or whatever is required to get that dentist appointment done, so they can stay with the same dentist they've always seen. That's a question too. Well, I don't want my loved one to have to go to a different dentist just because we're in this program. That's not the case. As long as your dentist takes cash, they can go. Adaptive aids is a huge deal. There are so many adaptive aids out there that I tell families when we sign them up for HCS with our program, I say, before you buy anything, call us. Let's see if it's covered. And there's a pretty long list that the state has. It's all in black and white. Any provider can share with you that list so that you can see for yourself what's covered and what isn't. But it goes through a huge variety of things. So first, Medicaid pays for things. So like say it's incontinence supplies, Medicaid typically covers those kind of supplies. But when you start looking at glasses, Medicaid doesn't always cover the cost of glasses. They'll cover maybe $60, but you can put the rest of it on the plan, and your glasses are paid in full. Hearing aids, hearing aid batteries. If you're looking at any kind of medical needs like a CPAP, BiPAP, those are really expensive, typically not covered. The program will pay for it. If you need a specialized wheelchair and Medicaid has already bought one and maybe it just didn't work for you, you can only get one every 5 years, but if it can be justified on the plan, that could be covered as an adaptive aid. A really big one, a high expense, is a wheelchair accessibility for your vehicle. So to add in that ramp is quite expensive. Adaptive aids will pay for it, or at least part of it. So you have $10,000 every plan year for adaptive aids. So you could maybe use just a little bit to cover a multivitamin, a shoe insert, extra diabetic strips. I mean, just so many things. I could never name them all, but anything like if you needed like specialized silverware to eat with, a cane of, just anything adaptive is probably covered by this plan. So just please don't buy anything until you check with your provider for the list. So there's also therapies. So many times if you need physical therapy, occupational therapy, or speech therapy, you would go to the doctor makes the order and the referral, and Medicaid pays for something like 10 visits or something around there. But 10 visits isn't always enough to get the full therapy. So you can, after you have your Medicaid covered visits, if that same facility will contract with us it is a lower rate that the plan pays. So we have to contract with the therapy office, and they have to accept the rate that the plan will pay out. We can keep that therapy going, or we can get you in touch with a different therapist that does contract with us at these HCS rates and continue your therapy. And there is no real limit on that. I mean, we have people who just get therapy to maintain their level of ability or level of mobility. They go once a week, and it's like a year-long plan. They keep getting reevaluated, and we just keep it going just to make sure that they don't, regress any further with being able to walk. Or speech therapy. Sometimes that's for swallowing and being able to make sure that you can eat at your highest level without having to have your food like pureed, for example. But also speech therapy can be for if you have a hearing impairment and you need a adaptive device. The adaptive aids will pay for your adaptive device, and then the speech therapy will help make sure that you understand how to use it, and they add programs to it and make sure that you can always communicate with everyone that you're interested in communicating with. So it's a really cool services, and some of them kind of go together to make sure it covers it all. One question that people will ask is an iPad an adaptive aid? And it should be, but at this point, they've still not added an iPad. Even though it can be used as a communication device and it can help in so many ways, that's not the one that the state agrees to just yet, but maybe in time it will change.
Lynsy, we do have some questions. First of all, you were talking about the $10,000 per year for the adaptive aids. That doesn't roll over, does it? If you don't use it in the year, you lose it?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
And then I had thought that some of the professional therapies would include music and massage and horse therapy and things like that, but does it not?
I think it's on the plan is just physical therapy, speech therapy, and occupational therapy. Now, Medicaid will sometimes cover some of those things, and you would call the number on your Medicaid card and say that you're interested in those, and they could maybe direct you into some of the other therapies that would be covered through Medicaid.
Okay. And let's do one more real quick. Under the CDS option,
Okay.
are you required to hire individuals, or can a CDS employer use an agency or someone to help provide the services? And is ISS available with the CDS option?
Okay, so when you're talking about CDS, CDS means that you serve someone in your own home. So just to add in everybody else who probably has no idea what those words are or initials are. Okay, so when we're talking about supported home living, so you're not a host home provider, you're not a group in a group home, you serve your loved one lives with you at home. What CDS means is that it's consumer directed services. So you know how I was saying that a staff member can come into your home and assist with any kind of care that you need. So when we put it on the plan agency, that means that we're helping find the staff, we're hiring them, we're paying them, they're turning in their billing logs to us, and we are taking care of that service. It's taxable, so we're covering all of that. So the staff is hired by the company and carried out by the company. If you the parent or whoever is taking care of the special needs individual in your home choose the CDS option, that means there's a whole nother agency. It's called a CDS agency, and you choose your own staff, and then you choose a CDS agency, and the staff are hired over there through them. So your provider takes care of all these other services like your case manager, management, adaptive aids, nursing, that side of things. But you, as kind of the head of household, for example, take care of hiring your own staff, making your own schedule, telling them what it is they need to do each day, and the CDS agency covers the payroll. So that's kind of the difference between the two. So does that answer the question? Because at this point, I don't know if I remember what it was.
There's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. I'm just trying to group them together and get some of these questions answered. Why don't you, are ABA services covered?
I think you're going to have to tell me what ABA stands for. Unfortunately, I'm not familiar with that acronym.
Adaptive behavior. Someone tell me that acronym. I know it's going to come right through.
I feel like I've seen it, but it's not.
Applied behavior.
Applied behavior. So is that where you would go to an actual behavior treatment center? So on your behavior support services, if you, like, say you want direct therapy at a behavior treatment center, like, oh, I was going to use a name of one as an example that's pretty popular, but it's not going to come to me right now. I'm sorry, you guys. I wasn't planning for it, so it's not on the tip of my tongue. But anyways, so if you want to use that service, maybe not exactly what you're asking, but this is a way to possibly answer the question where it would be covered by the plan. So you can get the behavior analyst over at the behavior treatment place to write up a treatment plan that says, we're going to do direct therapy 2 times a week for 1 hour. Then you can add those hours to this plan. So what you would have to do is your provider has to contract with the behavior treatment center. We have to get the hours that are in the treatment plan added to the plan. And the caveat to it all, which usually is what makes it not covered, is that the therapy has to be done by the BCBA. So when they do a billing note, the BCBA has to be the one providing the therapy, not the behavior assistants that are in the facilities. And many times that's where they say, oh, well, our BCBA oversees the program and the assistants who provide the direct therapy, but they can't do the direct therapy themselves. And unfortunately, how the HCS billing guidelines are written is the BCBA has to do it all themselves or it's not billable. So I don't know if that is helpful at all, but that's the best answer I have.
I think that is helpful. I'm going to, we'll get back to some of these questions. I want to let you get through more of your slides, Lynsy, and maybe you'll answer some of these as we go, but.
Okay. And we are close to the end. This slide is kind of my most inclusive slide because it just kind of gives you an idea of each service that is provided on the plan. There may be a few others as well as the plans are updated each year, but these are the ones that we tend to see used most often. The next two I wanted to share with you guys are employment assistance and supported employment. And I'm going to kind of group those together because they go hand in hand. So employment assistance is where a staff member is hired. And the reason for their job, what they're doing each day, is to take you out into the community and teach you about jobs that are out there. So you would maybe go to several different places of employment and find out, hey, are you accepting applications? Or you might go to a couple different places that are interested and maybe just stand back and observe and see what it is that the employees that already work there do. And do you have an interest in that kind of work? At the point that you identify what you're interested in trying out, the staff member who's with you with employment assistance would help you fill out your application, maybe do some mock interviewing, help you have the conversations with setting up an interview. Depending upon whether or not the employer would agree to it, they could sit in on your interview and maybe assist you with it. So employment assistance is all of the things that you do up until the point that you get an actual job. So when you're offered the job and you're going to start doing onboarding, that's when employment assistance stops and supported employment begins. And the same staff member could be your supported employment person to assist you. So they would help you with your onboarding documents, get your direct deposit set up or whatever that may be. They'll help you fill out all of your new employee paperwork, maybe go through the training with you so that when you get to your first day on the job, they can help coach you and walk you through those things to make sure you're able to maintain your employment. And there are situations where the supported employment staff member stays with you hour by hour for your job. They're always there with you to coach you and help you. There are situations where you don't need that kind of supervision and assistance, and they back off slowly and then maybe just check on you weekly or monthly or whatever it may be. Maybe you get a new job task because you're doing so great and they're like, oh, well, we're going to have you try this now. Then they might come back in and work with you, hour by hour to make sure that you learn that new thing. So the supported employment is just to make sure that you're able to keep that job and do it to your best of your ability. So in-home assistance, that's where we were talking about the SHL, supported home living person. So going back, you can choose in-home assistance through the agency where the agency hires the staff. Even if it's somebody you prefer, you just don't want to do the paperwork, but you say, we all hired this person, like maybe my sister, to come into the home and help because my sister's already familiar with everything that needs to be done. I'm comfortable with her coming into my home because that's always a big thing. Like, I don't know if I want a stranger in my home. Well, you might have some other family member that doesn't live there that could be hired to do that. So there again, your in-home assistance, we call it PASSHAB. You might see that on the screen. That's where an assessment is completed for how much personal assistance and habilitation do you need. So that PASSHAB assessment that's completed by your team, your service coordinator, your case manager, they'll ask you a whole bunch of questions about what you can do on your own, what you want to be able to do on your own, and what you need help with. And that will compute out how many hours a week you have available on the plan for someone to come in and help you. So it could be their full-time job, 40 hours a week. They're going to come in and help you because you need that much assistance. It could be 2 hours a week is all that you need. So it really can be a very flexible opportunity. And if you don't want us to hire the staff and manage the time and all of those and the logs and all of those things, you can choose the CDS option and do all of those things yourself. Another thing that is the difference between the agency option where we manage the staff or the CDS option where you manage them yourself. People say, well, why would I want to do that? The likelihood of doing that is because the agency has a lot of overhead. So we usually have to pay a little bit lower of an hourly rate. If you do the CDS option, you have no overhead, so you can pay a higher hourly rate. So that's usually the difference between choosing the agency versus the CDS company is what can you pay your staff. Transportation services is also available for people who have supported home living. So for instance, like I was sharing, you have your PASSHAB staff, your in-home attendant, they come into the home, but they can also take you anywhere you want to go, to pay your bills, to the grocery store, to work, to doctor appointments, whatever it may be. That's your transportation service. There's also respite, and I have to be really careful when I speak of respite, because respite is the equivalent of babysitting. So I need to go out of town, or I need to have, unfortunately, sometimes I need to have an operation and I need somebody to help me while I'm in the hospital, those kinds of things. So that's what respite is somebody else taking care of your loved one when you can't, or you need a vacation or whatever it may be. But respite is only offered if you have the supported home living option. So obviously respite isn't needed if your loved one is in a group home because it's already rotating staff. But where it gets confusing is if you are a host home. So you are contracted as a host home provider to take care of your loved one 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And right now, the way the plan is set up is the state has it set up, HHS has it set up where respite is not a qualified option for host home. It is only an option if you're supported home living. You have your attendant that comes in, you have your attendant transports you, your attendant can be your respite, or somebody else can be identified as respite. But if you're in the host home program, you don't have that available. You would have to just work out another option, like maybe pass along the daily rate or, you know, an hourly rate if it's only a few hours, whatever it may be. So that's a very important thing to share that can get confusing because everybody needs a break if they're taking care of someone. But unfortunately, the state isn't looking at it that way when they're determining how respite can be added to the plan. And the last one I want to talk about today is minor home modifications. This one I feel like gets kind of like raised over, and it's not always brought up and offered in team meetings. So it should just be known to you that minor home modifications are available. You have to be really careful when you use your minor home mods because there is $7,500, so $7,500, but it is a lifetime limit. So the state gives you these monies, $7,500, and the way that things cost these days, that's probably going to be one project, maybe two projects, and that's it for your life. So anytime we talk about minor home mods, it's important to first discuss, are you living in your permanent home? Now, we don't always know that answer, but if you're renting a home, for example, you're improving the homeowner's home, and you may not live there forever, you might move. So you might want to be careful on using somebody's minor home mod money in a rental home. But if you own your home, the likelihood of you living there is pretty good, and you need something modified, you would definitely want to consider using these dollars. So some examples of minor home modification projects would be if your loved one is aging and you just have like a tub shower combo. A really popular minor home modification is to change that into a roll-in shower. Maybe you have one of those low toilets and you need a tall toilet. Maybe you have a sink that sticks out and you would need like maybe a different sink where it's just the pedestal or maybe even the roll under, just to make things a little bit easier to get in and out of. Another example is like, say you have some pretty thick carpet and you're dragging your feet and it's a fall hazard. You could use the money to take the carpet out and put in smooth flooring. So there's different ways to use the money. There are also quite a few restrictions on what it will cover. So there's also a nice list that the state or the HHS provides that says minor home modifications that are covered. And then they actually have a list that's almost just as long of like things that are not covered that maybe people aren't sure could be covered, like adding in another bathroom. Even if your loved one could benefit from it, that wouldn't be covered because it's not modifying the home. That's actually completely improving the home. So they wouldn't cover something like that. So now I'm mostly just kind of recapping what we already talked about a little bit and kind of wrapping things up, and I'm happy to answer questions as best I can. I'm not completely an expert. I've done this a long time, but I don't always have all the answers, as I probably, you wouldn't even want to be talking to somebody who says they know everything. But the piece that I always want to recap and come back around to after we've talked about all of the things that the HCS program could potentially provide is just the reminder that the waiting list is really long. Our state is number 50 for providing services to special needs individuals, meaning that when they meet at the state legislature level, this is not at the forefront of their mind to discuss. There's lots of things that are so important in Texas. Nothing should be discounted as not important. But this is so important, and it's just not getting to everybody's attention the way that it should. This is people's lives. This is making sure people live their best life. It should be at the top of the list. And as a country, it says at the top of a lot of states' list. As a state, is not on the list. So please contact your legislature, tell them these services are important. You need to take them seriously. You need to put money and time and planning into them. And then just as a reminder, like 15 to 20-year wait. So if you know somebody, or if you have a child with a special needs diagnosis, intellectual disability diagnosis, please reach out to your local authority right away, your LIDA, and put your loved one on the list. When they send that packet in the mail 15 years from now, you still get to make the decision of, do we want this service or not? And, you know, you never know where you'll be at that point. So just be thinking, I don't know what's going on in 20 years, but, you know, let's at least get them to mail us the packet so we can talk about it.
Exactly.
And then if you're not sure, because I keep saying LIDA, local authority, MHMR, if you're not sure who that even would be, if you go to this website, you can put in your, well, actually, you don't even have to put in your county. It just brings up every county in Texas and tells you who it is. So this is where you would go to find out. If you are on the HCS waiting list, another quick tip that I want to share with you is that, like, say you live in Houston, or any city, but especially in Houston, and you live in this subdivision, and you're just moving over to this other subdivision, you need to always be thinking about this. If you're on the HCS waiting list, on which, does that put you into a different county? Does that put you into a different LIDA? Because unfortunately, that could affect where you are on the HCS waiting list, because it doesn't, you don't stay on it statewide. It is countywide, and they get so many slots per year per county based on the size. So just please be thinking about that whenever you are getting onto one of these waiting lists, when you're moving possibly from subdivision to subdivision. It doesn't feel like it's much of a difference, and it shouldn't matter, but it can.
It very well can. Can you, get your contact info up there, because we still have a lot of questions, but we're pretty much out of time. So I would love to be able to have people reach out to you or to your company to be able to get the rest of these questions answered.
Yes. So my very last slide before my contact information is, if you've heard about this and you would consider hosting a child or an adult with special needs in your home, you can reach out to me. There's some information at sevitahealth.com you can apply, but reaching out to me directly is probably the easiest thing. I am a recruiter for Host Home throughout our entire state, so no matter where you live, I'm your girl, and I would love to share some information about that with you. And then this is my information. We are here to help. We are here to spread awareness, and if I can't answer your question, I can definitely point you in the right direction of a good resource.
Wonderful. Everyone get this. I can't copy and paste it, but you will receive these slides in your email, whatever email that you registered for this meeting with. You will receive these slides. Also, a consolidated planning group will be reaching out to you to make sure that you were able to get your questions answered. If you could just go to my last slide so that people can grab my contact info if they want it. Yeah, that one.
This one. Okay.
But we're gonna just skip my last slides, because there was so much great information, Lynsy, that you shared, that I know that people would, I wanted to give you as much time as we possibly could.
And so, I had turned off my phone, so I couldn't see like where we were on time, because I didn't want to get distracted by any messages that went off. So I apologize. I'll try to go a little faster, but we can do this again, you guys. And if you've heard it once, it never hurts to hear it again. So
absolutely right. That is absolute. So contact me for questions about special needs planning and benefits and the money side of things. Contact Lynsy for information about the waiver programs and your local authority, and especially that HCS waiver. Okay. So I hope you all have a fantastic day. And if we didn't get to your question, feel free to reach out. We are here to help. It's just that with the time constraints and the number of questions we had today, we might not have gotten to you, but we're not going anywhere. So reach out to us and we'll talk soon. And I hope you all have a great day. Thank you, everybody. Gabriella, feel free to reach out if you need anything with any questions. And thank you all for being here with us today. Thank you again, Lynsy, and take care.